tātou e rau ki nei I tēnei o ngā tauhau. Te Aokapurangi, at least we can plug her in time because 1823 is a big date in Te Awa when Rangitihi successfully invaded, for the second time, Matua Island was invaded. If I just go back, the first time it was invaded, it was our Te Awa came from the coast, Maketu, and we invaded our own relations on the koia and took control, and so most of the tribes, not all, around the Lake Rotorua come from that first invasion. And we go under the term of Ngāpu Mano Ewa, the 8 hearts of Te Awa. And the 8 hearts being children of my namesake, Rangitihi. So the second one came about because of Ali's tribe. Now, if you think the Green Lake, or Rotokaki, there's a lake, island, 2 islands, but a big island down the southern end called Motutawa. And in the year 1822, a visiting party of Ngāpui were coming through. They'd come down from Thames, and when they got to the Green Lake, they were our tribe, Matua Rangitihi, were incited to kill them because they had massacred people up in the Thames Pyro region. And so our people made the decision to do that. And so the survivors went back up north to the Bay of Islands and told their news, and the big chief up there, Rangitihi, decided that he would use the summer to plan his raid, to get his canoes and his provisions and come down and attack Rotorua. And they came down in the month of March, February, March, April, around that time. And they came through through Tauranga, picked up some scouts, I suppose, who brought them up the Pongakawa River. They came across Roteihu, through the Oho Channel, and then invaded Makuia. Because all of Rotorua had heard they were coming, and thought they were clever. We thought we were clever to take all our canoes onto Makuia Island and be safe. Prior to this happening, Te Aokapurangi was living, married, around the Te Puke Maketu area. And she was kidnapped, taken away from her children, kidnapped by a similar Ngāpui party. Because the Ngāpui, they had technology by way of guns before everyone else. And so they ranged far and wide, paying off debts, I suppose, getting revenge for other things. She was picked up and she married a very famous chief from Northland called Wera, Te Wera Hauraka. He was named that. Wera means burnt, because as a child he was burnt on a fire. So they all call him Wera. That's probably his joke. Married him, became his chiefly wife, and she was also became a big advisor. Because when the All Party was mooted in that summer of 1822-23, she decided she'd join and come down. Her tribes are Tapuika, so Te Puke and Maketu at that stage were under a tribe called Tapuika. And Tapuika is still there now, and they come down from a big ancestor we call Tia. Tia is the uncle of the captain of the Te Awa canoe, Tamatakapu. She was partly Tapuika and partly Ngāti Rangiwewe, where Whaiaramona comes from. Although we think of them as Aoho, they actually go right back to Te Puke. So one of the pleas she made, and she faced up to the Council of Ngāpui, must be like this, and she made a plea, would you please understand that when you go through the Pongakawa River, those are innocent people. They weren't the ones who slayed your people. The people you need are the Tuarangi at the Green Lake, Rotokaki. They agreed to that. When the battle commenced, it took a couple of days, and if you ever go out to Koia, you'll get to, right beside Hindenburg's Pool, just before you get there, there's a big rock, a reddish-looking rock, and you can see on the rock where the musket balls had made indents because the Ngāpui were practicing from the lake, and that rock was one of the rocks they used to torture captured Te Awa people. So the battle didn't go well for Te Awa. And didn't matter how many times you attacked with wooden weapons against guns, you're going to come off second best. And so in the end, she convinced her husband first, and then she went back to the Ngāpuhi War Council and said, can I please save my relations? You know, the rest of Te Aroa, they'll have to look after themselves, but my relations, Ngāti Rangi, where we are, all here on the island, and they were, innocent of the original sin. And then they sort of put a challenge to her. And they said, well, okay, if you can convince them to go under your legs, you can save them. And the idea of that is, if you, in Māori culture, your head is the most sacred part, and you never want to put it under another person. You're sort of going under their prestige, their mana. And so, being clever, she climbed up on the meeting house. At Makoia, where the wharf is, you'll see a little hill overgrown, and that's Kaiweka. And Kaiweka is where Tūtānakai anymore lived, and not at that time. And there was a house there called Tamatakapua, the first one, the third one stands at Ohinwitu now. She climbed on top of that house, and because they were thinking that one at a time they get through. And then she called all her relations to come in. And because she did that, we still stand before you today. Because between death and going under a woman's thighs, I'll be sprinting. But I suppose, so Te Aokapurangi, what I always thought about her was that one of the things I saw here, you're resilient, and I can't imagine how you get kidnapped and you become a wife from the kidnapping. You're resilient. And I thought that she did a really clever thing under duress, calling the people into a whare rather than trying to do it individually, because that actually saved them. All the ones who got into that Tamatakapua were saved, and then finally the big chief from Ngāti Rangi, he Kaiwa, he rode to the Makoia alone, and he stood before Ngāpuhi, and he sued for peace, because they were amazed that he did that, knowing that he could have been killed, and that's how it ended. But he didn't just get peace, he actually secured the island and the rest of the surrounds, because he also convinced them to leave. You've got your revenge now, essentially, now you can go. So I think it's a neat that you've chosen Te Aokapurangi, because you won't find many disasters in our history like that, in Te Aroa history. The only other one we talk about is the eruption, Tarawera eruption in 1886. So we have two big ones in our minds. And they sort of, it might seem a long time ago to you, but every tangi we do at Waka, we sing about the eruption. It's like it happened yesterday. If you go to Te Whānau, every tangi they have, they sing about the turning of the canoe at Maraenui, when one day the Omaiwa people, they went with adults, the kids used to travel to school on Sundays and go back on Fridays, and they tried to cross the flooded river and it turned, and you see all these names, the Whānau, Huri Nui, Matua Rangitihi, Tipi Wai, they all come from that disaster. Same thing, before they walked.
That's funny.
Kia ora.
Lovely.